We do not achieve things when we are in a victim mindset.
Yes.
We have to feel empowered, that it's an equal world, to mutually respect each other, and that will help shape a different future for us. Whatever mindset you have does not need to be your mindset in the future. You can change. That's the whole growth mindset angle rather than a fixed mindset.
Hello and welcome to another super duper exciting episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. It's a very unique situation today because I am hosting another podcaster, but she is a podcaster 10x in every manner. She is one of the leading corporate leaders today at a very successful startup, and she also has her own podcast. And this podcast excited me really because it is about books. And as you can see in my background, I love books, and anybody who respects books are in my good books. I am so honored and proud to introduce Preethy Padmanabhan. She is the most sought after high-tech executive in Silicon Valley, Senior Director, Platform Product Marketing at Freshworks, which was very much in the news last year. But hey, some company which creates these kind of news headlines, who are the people behind these success stories? And my answer is people like Preethy Padmanabhan, after I had a conversation of her comeback at Freshworks. Now before that, I want to tell you my experience meeting Preethy for the first time. I met her at a Women's Day, a women empowerment event, and this is what she said when I asked about bias against women. She said bias exists not only against women, against men also. And this to me was a life-changing statement. That's what happens when you meet really amazing leaders. They say something and it takes you to the next level. So without further ado, somebody so special must come to the stage. No more waiting. Preethy, welcome to Pitch Cafe podcast.
Thank you, Vida. It's an honor to be here with you.
Fantastic. Now let's look at Preethy's track record before we really get to know her. Preethy is not only a seasoned technology executive, but she's recognized as Silicon Valley Business Journal's Women of Influence in 2021. No small job. She also hosts this podcast 10x Growth Strategies. We'll talk more about it. And she's got many CXOs, investors as guests. And she has also worn the hat of an investor. She's an investor with portfolio, and her give back to the women community is commendable. She serves as a board of director at nextem.ai and a portfolio and how women invest. So these are all some of the things we'll talk more through the podcast. Her contribution to non-profits, economic empowerment of women, children, and education is truly commendable. So Preethy, who is this person? Who is the person behind so many accomplishments? Are you really a techie? Are you a simple girl with big dreams, who's always racing to get ahead? Tell us your story. Tell us, who is Preethy Padmanabhan? Who is this person?
I will summarize some of my experiences for the audience here. I had a very simple beginning, a very humble beginning in India, in South India. I grew up in Tamil Nadu, in Coimbatore, and I was raised by a single mother. And my mother really had to struggle to make sure I got the right education and the right background to succeed in life. And she is my first role model. And I owe a lot that I do to her. So growing up in Tamil Nadu, I actually decided that I want to be the best in whatever I do, to strive for excellence and do my best. And so I continued on that journey and studied in BITS Pilani in North India. And then after that, I came to the US. So I have about 20 plus years of experience. I worked in 3 large companies and three startups, taking 2 of them to IPO. That's my journey in short, a very humble beginning, but certainly had very big dreams. I'm a techie at heart. I started as an engineer. I did several years of engineering roles, engineering management, and then decided to move to the business side. I did product management, marketing, sales operations. So certainly I worn different hats in several different functional areas of the companies.
Fantastic. I can see you're on the road to to the C-level suite. I can always say that. And I know you're holding several important positions in many organizations. We'll get to that. But before that, I was very inspired by, your motivation to join Chief as a founding member. Tell us about your work at Chief and other women empowerment organizations you are currently backing.
Before I start talking about these organizations, I'd love to share my perspective on why do we need such women's organizations. It's been a difficult journey for women for several years, right, in this country, especially in the US and all over the world, to get recognized, to be put in the roles that they deserve. We saw that initially after in the 60s and 70s, women were not given roles beyond a secretary. We have come a long way from there where women occupy C-suites, but we still have a long way to go. We have less than 5% of women in leading Fortune 500 companies. And we also have a long way to go in getting a lot of women on boards. So I see the role of women's networks in creating meaningful change for women around the world. For example, the How Women Lead group that I am part of, they were instrumental in the SB 826 mandate law that came into force to increase the women representation in public companies in California. I wish we did that all over the country also. And I also work with other organizations like Chief that you mentioned. I'm part of the network. And the Chief network brings together executive women, and they have peer mentoring, excellent programming, excellent networking. So we learn from each other. I also want to mention a third group that I'm part of, which is called High Power, which is a very close group of women executives who help each other. And we help us build each other's platform, right? And to help us promote each other in the network.
This is a whole ecosystem you're building around yourself. So I wouldn't be wrong in calling you a change maker, because you're not only changing at an individual level, you're making a difference, but you're having a whole community around you, which is also following you, nurturing you. Now, with these thoughts in mind, I want to ask your personal story, your personal story as a change maker. How did you do it? If, for example, if you talk about Freshworks, how did you make a start there? What was your path in change making?
I really believe that failure is a stepping stone to success. Mm-hmm. I've seen that happen time and again in my life, in my career. And I can share this example from my recent days at Freshworks. When I joined Freshworks in 2020, I joined right before the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. And I had not met my team. All my reports were in India. So I hadn't met them. And so when we first did a survey of the employees, our company does the engagement survey twice a year. We had very poor scores that year. We had in the 60s, right? 65, 66 out of 100. And that means they were not happy in their job. And they were frustrated, not just because of work situations, but even with respect to the pandemic. They felt bad about working remote, not being able to see each other. And we all went through these phases of feeling low and even depressed at times because of that situation. And so I felt that, I got a C grade in my test because I had gotten a poor score. And the fact is that the whole thing was happening around me, and it was all in effect even before I had joined. But still, I felt responsible, right? Because this was my team and I wanted to make a difference to them and for the company. So what I did was I actually worked with them. I sat down with them for several hours and I asked them, tell me, what do we need to do to make a difference? What are the top 5 things that are not working for you? Mm-hmm. And we had a very open dialogue, and people were allowed to be vulnerable, to be open, to share their challenges. Mm-hmm. And we wrote down, right? We wrote down what were all the things that people wanted to change. There were things like people wanted to feel connected with each other. Mm-hmm. People wanted the ability to communicate and get visibility while they were working remotely, which is a big challenge, right? Yes. and people wanted fair compensation. So all of those things were some of the feedback. And we took actionable steps. First thing was, I told them, look, we do not achieve things when we are in a victim mindset.
Yes.
We have to feel empowered. When you say you want to feel recognized, you want to feel visible, you take it in your hands to create those opportunities, and I will help you with that. We will create the opportunities for you to go and share your expertise cross-functionally and feel empowered. Do not pull back on what you can do. So that way the people felt empowered and they were confident to move forward. And several of them came forward and built several programs that were impactful across the company as a result. So these are some examples, and tangibly in 2021, we saw the engagement score go from mid 60s to mid 80s, right? So that became the average score. It really shot up a lot because the team members then got very happy, and we started doing game nights every month for fun, and we used to play online Jeopardy and all sorts of games. So it was really a great transformative experience for me and for the team.
Fantastic. They say women lead with the heart, but when I look at you, when I hear your story of success at Freshworks, it is a transformative journey. You have your head and heart in the right place. Both of them are operating, and I feel really proud and I feel empowered too. So, kudos to you, 10 on 10. It's not 60, it's not 80. Your score is 10 on 10, maybe 12 on 10. So with that, let's move on to a place where you really scored 10 on 10. You were featured in Silicon Valley Business Journal's Women of Influence list, and it's so hard to make it there. Tell us all about your experience.
I was very humbled and I feel very honored to be on the Silicon Valley Business Journal Women of Influence. And I got nominated by both my mentor of several years and a mentee. So that was very great of them to do that. And it certainly felt that, the people around me were really role models for several women. And I feel that, some of the things that I got to do, right, in terms of investing in women, being part of boards in non-profit, for-profit world. I've been teaching students about entrepreneurship, marketing, especially high school students through summer camps. And also the podcast, the 10X Growth Strategies podcast, is a great way that I am able to influence so many people. So I feel that the Silicon Valley Business Journal Award is not just for the work I'm doing with my company, but it's what I'm doing for the community, right? That is a big part and big piece of my life. And I feel being recognized for all the things that I'm doing for the community and at work felt very happy.
Wow. Amazing journey, a very well-rounded journey. What are we without our community? Our community is, defines us. We are a drop in the ocean. Make sure the ocean is healthy. So great. With that, I really very intrigued. I'm very intrigued with your 10X Growth Strategies podcast. I know it is about books, and I heard so many people, refer me to this podcast. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Tell us more about your podcast, 10X Growth Strategies. What was it like? Why did you start? And what has the experience been like?
That is where the high power program comes into picture. When in 2020, when we all went into the pandemic, I did not know that I was going to launch a podcast. The podcast became my, COVID time efforts. And so what happened was, when I joined this high power program, which was for executive women, we actually built a platform. We come up with a platform on how we want to be known for the next 10 years. Yeah. Right. So as a woman and as men too, we have to think about what brand we want to build for ourselves. Yeah. So when I was looking at that, I knew that it had to do with growth, because the last several years, what I've been working on is taking companies from pre to post IPO. With Nutanix, I had a chance to do that, helping the company from 250 million to 1.2 billion plus. Same thing with Freshworks. The last couple of years, we've grown from less than 200 million to over 400 million in run rate. So those are all really great growth stories that I felt was dear to me. And that, along with my passion for books, because I at least read 2 books a month. And so I love reading books. And I thought, what's the best way to bring those two together? Yeah. Why don't I create a forum for leaders and authors to come and talk about a book that made a difference, that helped them grow their business, that helped them grow themselves. So those were some of the angles that I was looking at when I brought this podcast to life. And we certainly have been, delivering on that goal to consistently bring value to the community. We published over 35 episodes, have about 7,500 downloads. I'll talk about a couple of recent episodes I did. One of it was on the presentation secrets of Steve Jobs. Nice. By the author Carmine Gallo. I learned a lot doing that podcast. Mm-hmm. And also a recent one is on The Art of Happiness by Dalai Lama. That was also a very interesting book that I got to read and talk about. Some of the top podcasts that are downloaded, The Leadership Pipeline. It's a book by Ram Charan. Mm-hmm. And yes. Give and Take, a book by Adam Grant, and Ikigai. So these are some of the top books that have been featured on the podcast.
Which has been your favorite book? I know you can't name the favorite podcast because all of them are your children. What is the book you liked, and what is a nugget of wisdom you want to share with us today?
That's a very tough question. I think, my all-time favorite book, I have 2 favorite books. One is The Mindset, right? The Mindset book by Carol Dweck, who worked at Stanford. Yep. I really thought that made a big difference to me because it taught me that whatever mindset you have does not need to be your mindset in the future. You can change. That's the whole growth mindset. Exactly. Angle rather than a fixed mindset. I did that podcast with a very good friend of mine called Benu Agarwal. She is the CEO of her company for several years. I'm a big fan of her. So we did that episode together. The other one, which I would love to do an episode on, another book, is called Leadership and Self-Deception. I still haven't done an episode on it, but I hope to do that soon.
Fantastic. This is a great way to inspire the community to read books, to move on from, texting and social media to sit and read from the wise people and open a book actually and read it, right? So great. We are running short on time here. So much to learn from you. I think one lifetime is not enough. You are a compilation of so many books. So before that, I have 2 more questions before we wrap up. Tell us about your role as a board member and your connection with the TIE. You're a charter member and you are also been hosting amazing panels at the TIECon conference. The Indus Entrepreneur, for people who don't know, it's one of the topmost entrepreneurial ecosystems in the entire world. It's got this franchise model, so you can launch your own chapter. But Preethy Padmanabhan is a charter member. It's at a whole different level. So tell us, Preethy, about your role, all about your role and your recent contributions to TIE Connect.
So I have been on nonprofit and for-profit boards since 2005. I started out being on the board of a nonprofit called My Helping Hands, where we ended up raising about $500,000 for orphanages based in India. Then I joined a marketing board, the Silicon Valley American Marketing Association board. And then later I joined the BITS Alumni Association, which is my college alumni. And through that, we organized a lot of economic empowerment events for entrepreneurs, startups, people that listen to what you're doing here, right? The podcast. So we did a lot of work for that. I'm also on the for-profit board of NextStem, which is a seed to Series A company. And we are working on health tech with AI and other, brain-computer interface technology. So that is my background in terms of boards. With respect to TIE, I've been fortunate to be a volunteer for the organization for over 15 years. I've been working with TICON for so many years. I've really enjoyed being part of the conference right from the beginning, and also enjoyed the last 3 years where I ran the cloud track and ran a bunch of panels and speakers, and that was a great experience. And recently the VC Connect, where we got to connect VCs with entrepreneurs so they can get advice directly from these top level VCs.
Fantastic. So all of you guys who don't know what is tie.org, please check it out and follow Preethy's work at TIE. I'm sure it will inspire you to contribute like her as well. With that, a wrap-up question here. Here you are, a really successful women business leader, and you're really trying to make a difference to other women leaders in the community. Tell us more, what does it take to raise a confident girl child, and what is lacking in today's world? The kind of humble beginnings you have come from, the struggles you have faced, and where you are today. What is your advice to the community?
I think we can learn a lot from global practices around the world. I certainly think around the world, several countries are doing a lot to help raise confident girl children. The first thing I would say is not to differentiate between boys and girls, even at the smallest level. For example, over here in the US, we say blue is for boys, pink is for girls.
Yes.
We don't need to do that. Right? I love wearing a blue shirt as much as I love wearing a pink shirt. Right? We don't need to define. And same thing, if we say things like, the role of a woman is to cook. It's not, right? Both men and women can cook or clean or work in the workforce. So having those narrow definitions that we have had for the last 100 years is not going to serve us for the future, for the next 100 years. So that is one change I would love to see across the world. The second, I would say tangibly in schools, in elementary and middle schools, I would suggest to bring women role models, because when the girl children see other women on how much they could achieve, then that gets them inspired. They're able to see that. You can even feature movies. There are so many beautiful movies that have come out about women in science, women in technology, the Hidden Figures, for example. We have to feature those movies for girl children in the schools, right? And then thirdly, I would say bring boys along, right? Educate them on respecting women and see the value women bring. I've heard a lot of horror stories from other women who have worked in some of the companies, and they were actually sidelined or they were disrespected, and boys let them out of the group. Even though they were great, the women were contributing, they would just snap at them or mistreat them. So the young boys of this age have to learn at a very young age that it's an equal world, to mutually respect each other, and that will help shape a different future for us in the workplace and in the society.
Yeah, you bring to my memory two powerful women I have interviewed. One of the women, her podcast is not out, but she's a power center here. She talked about this, bringing women role models to meet, because when she was 6 years, she met a women CEO and asked her, how did you become the CEO? And today, this power center, she's on her way to becoming a CEO. And another experience, I don't know if it's a name coincidence, I had interviewed Preethy Zinta when she was visiting here, the very uber successful Bollywood actress. She said, I asked her this question, how do you get women to become strong? She answered exactly like you. She said, your father, should do it to your mother at home, and he should tell other people to treat your daughter well, and that will make sure that you will choose a partner, or you will expect that of your partner, and you start this whole positive cycle going. So, what a name coincidence, what a moment. And, it shows that women of influence are like you, and more reason for us to follow you and your work. Thank you so much, Preethy, for this amazing half hour you spent with us. Every minute counts in this half hour. All of you guys listen to this podcast again and again. Thank you so much for gracing this show.
Thank you, Vida, for the opportunity. It has been a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Fantastic.